Everybody hear me? Can you hear me? Okay. Attendance is pretty sparse today, so we'll make attendance. Take attendance. Thank you. So we're in the middle of talking about NP-completeness. And NP-completeness is a theory of complexity, how intractable things are, how easy it is to complete things in polynomial time or not. Lots of benefits. It saves you a lot of time and trouble and effort. It groups together lots of problems into one large set of problems in a big complexity class, and then you can reason about them all together. So basically a wholesale way of analyzing problems or addressing their complexity. So we talked about reductions. A problem is reducible to another problem if it can be transformed to that other problem in polynomial time, for instance, and yeses transformed to yeses and no's transformed to no's. So it preserves membership in the set, one way or the other. So we transform things, and then we solve them. Once they're transformed, thereby solve the original problem, hopefully. That's the idea. And we've already seen examples of that. Like we reduced problems to other problems. For example, we reduced problem of sorting to the problem of solving convex halls. So the complexity of one problem, once it's transformed, gives you a lot of information about the complexity of the previous problem that got transformed into it. And the transformation better be efficient. By efficient, usually polynomial time. With respect to NP-completeness. For example, we can transform satisfiability into graph colorability, and we'll see probably later today even how that's done in detail. Right now, we're still saying it notionally. And by the way, satisfiability is given a Boolean formula. Does there exist an assignment to the variables that make that formula true? Graph colorability, I give you a graph and I ask you the question, is there a way to paint the graph nodes with colors such that no two adjacent nodes are assigned the same color? And usually the number of colors is 3 or 4, something small. Because if you allow enough colors, everything can be painted with a different color, and then obviously there's no issue. So the trick is to do that when you only have a few colors, not many. So it's a study of transformations. We said the problem is NP-complete, if it's NP-hard, and also if the problem itself is an NP. And it's NP-hard if every problem in NP reduces to it, in the sense that we showed in the previous slide. And it gives rise to complexity classes, polynomial time, non-deterministic polynomial time, and a few other classes around it. And the real picture is much, much bigger than this, but we're showing you a very small local map of a much larger picture of complexity theory. There's lots and lots of complexity classes that have all sorts of relationships among them. Some subsumes others, some are intersecting with others, some kind of cross. And on many of these complexity classes, we don't even know exactly their boundaries. There's open questions about where their boundaries lie with respect to other complexity classes. In particular, we don't know if P is equal to NP, so both P and NP could be the same class. But P is certainly a subset of NP, because determinism is a special case of non-determinism. You have the option of using non-determinism, or parallelism. You don't have to exercise that option. If you have a multiple processor, you just use one of them, even though you have others at your option. So, but we do know that P is equal to co-P because you can complement a solution and get the opposite solution. Negate 0 to 1 and 1 to 0. And so if you ask the problem with a yes-no in the deterministic sense, it becomes a no-yes by just flipping the bit of your solution. So P is equal to co-P. So satisfiability, you get Boolean formulas, and you need to know if they're satisfiable or not. We said that the theorem of Cook and Levine basically reduced all of NP to satisfiability. So in some sense, satisfiability, the problem with satisfiability is the hardest problem with NP. Because an arbitrary two-dimensional computation with NP can be reduced to satisfiability to a big, long Boolean formula It's satisfiable if and only if that computation succeeds and ends up with a yes answer. Otherwise, conversely, no. So, and we mentioned that a canonical way of showing problems or an NP is kind of guess and verify. So satisfiability can be solved in polynomial time non-deterministically by guessing each variable. Guess the x and guess the y and guess the z. By the time you get to the bottom, you guess all n variables, then you got to check to make sure your guesses are true. And if it's true, if it makes the Boolean formula satisfiable, you declare yes, you declare victory, and you've done it. It doesn't matter what happened on the other path. So it's like venture capitalism, right? You fund many companies, as long as one succeeds, you succeed. Doesn't matter what happens when all the failures. That's how non-determinism works. Okay, and we mentioned Levine's unfortunate missing of the fame because he wrote a very, very short, dense paper in Russian and Cold War. Nobody knew what he's done, but he still gets a credit for it. Too little, too late, but still a lot of credit for doing that. So the theory of NP-completeness in the 70s kind of blossomed, and now we know there's thousands of different problems, all of which are NP-complete, not just satisfiability, and we'll go through a couple of dozen of them and describe them in greater detail. We also mentioned that NP-completeness is independent of the underlying model. We said whether you compute on a Turing machine or an abacus or a supercomputer, using the game of life or biological computing, or just Boolean circuits or many other computation models, class P and the class NP are both the same for all of these models. Modulo constant. Okay. So if you can, if you have an algorithm that runs quickly on a supercomputer, it'll also run relatively quickly on an abacus compared to other algorithms that take much longer. Okay. So the constant is what is the big differentiator between an abacus and a supercomputer, not the asymptotics. Okay. How many get that? Yeah, it's the algorithm itself that has an inherent complexity and efficiency. Whether you compute it using your fingers or using a hyper super duper computer with a million cores, plus the algorithm stays the same. The constant can vary by 9 or 10 or 12 orders of magnitude. And don't get me wrong, that makes a dramatic difference in practical terms. But the asymptotics are the same. Okay, and we mentioned it's $1 million prize literally for this problem. And, I think we stopped here last time. So this is kind of a quick summary of what we did last time to refresh your memory. So there's different reduction types. There's two main reductions. One is a many-to-one reduction and converts an instance of the problem A to an instance of the problem B in one fell swoop. Okay? And there's another way to do it is by reducing a problem to another problem, instead of reducing it in one fell swoop, transforming it like we did with sorting and convex hull. That was a so-called many-to-one reduction. Instead of doing that, you can just use the oracle or the subroutine for problem B again and again and again in a way of solving A. So you're not restricted to one call or one transformation, one shot kind of reduction. And that's called a Turing reduction. So usually here we will focus on many-one reductions, even though Turing reductions is sometimes used as well by the base. So many-to-one reductions are sometimes called Karp reductions, and you'll see Richard Karp's contribution to NP-completeness in the early 90s. We'll go very, very specifically through this paper and show many examples of Karp reductions. The Turing reductions are usually called Cook reductions, and in honor of Stephen Cook. And whether these two types of reductions induce the same class, NP, we don't know, actually. It's an open question. Usually we define it using the first type of reduction, many-to-one. Could be equivalent. NP could be induced equivalently using both of these kind of reductions. We just don't know. After 50 years of thinking about it, we still don't know, which is interesting. Of course, there's hundreds of other open problems, all of which have been open for 40 or 50 years around this area of complexity theory, not just NP-completeness. Hundreds of which are open to this day. And every now and then somebody knocks down another one. That's a big deal. So, more specifically than satisfiability, let's talk about 3-SAT, 3 satisfiability. That's simply the restriction of satisfiability where every clause in this Boolean formula has exactly three literals, variables or their negations. That's what literals are, variables or their negations. So for example, here's the instance of 3-sat. X1 plus X5 plus X7, that's the first clause. Second clause is X3 plus X4 not plus X5 not. Is there a way to make this true? For this example, yes. In general, it's hard to tell. And if you restrict sat to be 3-sat, it seems that it should be easier. Turns out it's not. 3-sat is also NP-complete. Because if you have a problem, and you're not sure about the complexity, if you would start reducing the problem, making very, very specific, special cases of that problem, it becomes trivial eventually. Right? Like convex hull in the plane, not so easy. There's Graham scan, there's Jarvis March, there's all sorts of other algorithms. Right? But convex hull on the line is a very simple algorithm. How do you compute a convex hull on a line in one dimension, not two, but one? Very simple algorithm. What is it? Sort and then what? Connect the two endpoints. So that's n log n. You think of a simpler algorithm still.
Find the minimum.
Find the minimum.
And the maximum.
Find the maximum. There's a convex hull. You don't even need to sort. So when you reduce the problem enough, eventually it trivializes. Traveling salesman in the plane, very hard. Traveling salesman on a line, one big, very easy. Again, find the min, go to the max, go back. There's your tour. Don't want to zigzag across too many times. Okay, so sat, reduce it to 3 literals per clause. It turns out it's still NP-complete. And we're going to prove this. In fact, we'll prove it right now. So how do you show 3-sat is NP-complete? Well, take every clause in the original formula and convert it into a series of clauses. So let's say you have a clause that says x plus y plus z plus u plus v plus w. This clause right here has 6 variables. You want to convert it to a series of clauses that have 3 variables each. That's equivalent to this in the sense that if this clause is satisfiable, that series of clauses that we converted to 3 clauses of size 3 each, are also satisfied. So how do we do it? Well, here's how. Take the x and the y, slap them in first, then add a new variable a, then put a naught here, and put the z in, then put b and b naught, then put the u, then the v and the w, and c naught. So the a, b's, and c's are connected. So why is this satisfiable if and only if this is satisfiable? Well, if this is satisfiable, at least one of these must be true, because it's a disjunction, it's an or, and if one of them is true, the whole or is true. Right? So let's say if this is true, or this is true, then one of these is true, and so this you can make false, and the whole clause will still be true. And this will become a naught, will become true if a is false. And then this clause will be true, so it doesn't matter what the z is. And then you can make b true, and then this whole clause becomes true, and it doesn't matter, and so on. So as long as one of these x's, or y's, or z's, or w's is true, one of these clauses will be true automatically by that variable, and then make the connectors whatever you want to make them all come out true for all the other clauses, and it doesn't matter what the other variables are. And this series of clauses, when connected together with conjunctively with ands here, will be true if and only if the original was true. Okay. In other words, this is satisfiable if and only if that was satisfiable. How many understand this reasoning? Okay, you can think about it some more and you'll realize that that's a true statement. And so what you can do is you can take a formula that has arbitrary numbers of sized clauses of arbitrary sizes, convert to a formula that's equivalent, logically equivalent, that has only clauses of size 3 in such a way that this new formula is satisfiable if and only if the original formula is satisfiable, clause by clause. And so if you had a subroutine, an oracle, an engine, an algorithm to solve 3-sat, you can solve arbitrary sat using that engine, a subroutine. By first converting that to this, clause by clause, and then solving it for this new formula that's only 3-sat, not arbitrary sat. Bottom line is, solving 3-sat is as hard as solving any sat, arbitrary size clauses. How do we understand this argument? There's only a few people raising their hands. Don't ask me questions. Because if this is unclear, this is just shallow waters here. We're going to the deep end, and things become much more complicated later on. So let's air out the misconceptions now so that you'll get lost later. Go ahead.
Can you just run through it again?
Yeah. So the formula we have originally has arbitrary numbers of variables and negations of variables per clause. But the new problem that we're trying to solve has only 3 per clause max. In fact, it has exactly 3 Boolean variables or their negations per clause. And the question is, how hard is solving that problem? You already said solving SAT is hard. How do we know? Cook's there, proved it. That's why we got a Turing Award for it. It's as hard as anything in NP. As innocent as that problem looks and feels, what can be easier than looking at the Boolean formula and seeing if it's possible to satisfy it or not by plugging in numbers, zeros and ones for the variable. Well, you can do it brute force, but that's exponential time. And nobody knows how to do it any quicker than that. And Cook showed something even more dramatic, that all of NP reduces to it. So it's the hardest problem in NP. So we say, okay, let's reduce the number of variables per clause to 3 and see how hard that is. Let's jump ahead and then we'll come back to this. Because I want to show you what happens if you reduce the number of clauses, you reduce the number of variables per clause to 1. One SAT. What is one SAT? One SAT is simply a product. Okay? It's a product of variables or their negations. X times Y times Z naught times W times V naught, whatever. How hard it is to solve one SAT? Can you think of a quick algorithm to solve one SAT? A Boolean formula that's the product of just variables and or their negations? Is that formula satisfiable or not? Is there an assignment of the variables that makes it true? How hard it is to solve that? What algorithm can you think of is efficient to solve that problem? One SAT. Let me ask you, yeah, go ahead.
So you start assigning variables to the terms you encounter, and then if you encounter the negation of the term you've already seen, then you return false.
So if you see an X, that X better be true. Otherwise, all formula will be false because it's a bunch of products. You know, it's a product of all of these variables and their negations. Product means and, of course. So if a variable is there sitting in the, you better make it true. And if the negation of the variable is sitting there in the formula, better make it false. So when is a formula like this, of this structure, ever false?
If there is one variable with like negation as
Is there's a variable there, and later in the formula, its negation is also there as a product. This product is and. So you can't have a variable and its negation both be true. That's a logical contradiction. These are Boolean variables. So either a variable is true or its negation is true. You can't have both. So a formula in one SAT format is satisfiable if and only if what? There's no variable and its negation somewhere in the formula. How fast can you test for that algorithmically? At most, give me some brute force algorithm that's still reasonably efficient for polynomial time. Not a hard question. How do you test whether a variable and its negation are both present in that same formula? It's easy. That's a hint. But how do you do it?
For each variable, look through the entire list and see if it's
Yeah, for each variable, look at the entire list and see if the negation is there. If the negation is there, you know the formula is not satisfied. If for all variables, for none of them, the negation is there, the formula is satisfied. How do you understand this algorithm? Simple. How fast is it in terms of the number of variables? Let's say the size of the formula is n, because n variables and negations.
10 squared.
10 squared. Give me a faster algorithm and do it in 10 seconds. Sort, good, one word, excellent. How do you understand sorting? Sort the variables, and then you'll know for sure without having to look at every other one the hard way. Okay, so there's a very quick algorithm for one second and log n. You see, if you reduce the problem enough, whether it's the dimensionality, the size of things, the complexity of the parameters, eventually it trivializes. Becoming a millionaire is not easy. But only if you consider that you want $1 million. If you want 1,000,000 pennies, it's not so hard. You're still a millionaire, but you're a penny millionaire, not a dollar millionaire. Okay. And if you want to become a Zimbabwe millionaire, that's really, really easy. I'll prove that to you. In my hand, I'm holding a note. It's a banknote of Zimbabwe dollars, and the denomination is 100 trillion, not billion, $1 trillion, Zimbabwe dollars. I'm going to pass this around. I want this back, by the way. Just so you know, this is worth about $10 on eBay. So don't even bother stealing it.
How much real value?
How much in real money?
Yeah.
It'll probably get you a cup of coffee in Zimbabwe. Inflation there is so horrific. Anyway, but my point is this. If you reduce the problem enough, take some parameter of the problem and reduce it, it becomes trivial. Right? So 1 sat obviously is trivial. 3 sat, we're in the process of showing it's NP-complete. So 1 sat is trivial. What about 2 sat? That's not so easy to see one way or the other for 2 sat. So for 1 sat we said, you can look for a variable negation. 2 sat, I'll give you a hint for cyclism implication graph. For extra credit, try to solve that. To give you the rest of the details, not now, but extra credit. Resolve 2 sat. Okay, having said that, let's go back to 3 sat, which is the previous slide. Okay. So we want to find out whether Boolean formula is satisfiable. It has arbitrary number of variables per clause. We reduce it to a form that only has 3 variables per clause. That's equivalent. Every clause in this big formula here that we're trying to solve in regular SAT will be converted to a bunch of clauses that are only 3 variables per clause, and then it's this equivalent way. And then if we add an engine, a subroutine, an algorithm that solves 3 SAT and 3 SAT only efficiently, we can then exploit it to solve arbitrary SAT by converting it to 3 SAT first, and then solving a 3 SAT efficiently. And I'll tell you the answer for arbitrary SAT, which means arbitrary SAT and 3 SAT are both just as hard as one another. Okay. How do you understand that now? Oh, good, more people. Any more questions? Let's ask a few more questions about this, because things are only going to get more subtle, not less, as we proceed forward with NP-completeness. This is just a shallow water still. It's going to get deeper. And by the way, where is the reduction here on this slide? This transformation from a few slides ago when you sort of set A goes to set B through some function F and it's a transformation. How many remember that slide? Good. Where's A, where's B, and where's F on this slide? Because they're all there. It's just an instantiation of that abstract slide we saw earlier. Just to make sure you can tie the loose ends of this abstraction into this concrete example and do the mapping in it. Where's A, where's B, where's F? How do you understand my question? Okay, so not enough people even understand the question. Okay, good, let's backtrack. There's A, there's B, there's F. We said a problem A reduces to a problem B if and only if. In fact, let me show you the full description that we had a number of slides ago. Yeah, here we go. A set A and a set B, these are 2 problems, or languages if you will, but problems. You take an instance of A, reduce it to an instance of B. F is the transformation, transforms an instance of A to an instance of B. And that F better work in polynomial time. The transformation of that problem to the other problem better happen quickly. So you don't lose complexity there, and maybe that's where the complexity is exactly here. No, it's not in the transformation, it's somewhere else. The complexity manifests. Okay? And if you can solve B quickly, then you can solve A quickly. And these are these 2 theorems. So how many get this abstraction? We went over it last time, we went over it today again. I asked you to read about it in the book, and I'll ask you again, read about it in the book. Because this is subtle enough so that, just an hour in class and an hour in the next slide is not enough to wrap your mind around. You got to read it in the book, and maybe even other books the wiki page, describing different ways of characterizing this kind of phenomena of transformations and reductions, NP-completeness, and these kind of proofs of reductions until your mind wraps tightly around it. This is abstract stuff. It's probably the most abstract stuff we've seen so far. Probably not the most one we've seen all semester, but this is getting up there in abstraction. This is not an algorithm. This is relationships between algorithms and between problems. This is a kind of meta-algorithms. F is an algorithm, and F transforms a problem into another problem. So that an algorithm for the second problem will automatically yield an algorithm for the first problem. Again, mapping into sorting and convex halls. We take an instance of sorting. Numbers on the real line. We square them all, raise them to the parabola, then ask what's the convex hull of the result. So the transformation is the squaring of all the numbers. That happens quickly in linear time. Just square them all, not losing any time by doing that. Then once you have the convex hull of the numbers on the parabola, because you square them up, the convex hull will get you the sorted order. Because there's only one convex hull with all the points on the parabola. First of all, they're all in a convex hull. Second, they're connected in order along the parabola. Nothing's going to be zigzagging around. I don't understand that. We've been through that before. That's a transformation. A is the problem of sorting. Every instance of sorting is an element of A here. So that W here is an instance of sorting. That permutation. How do you get that? Yeah. B is a set of instances of convex hull problems. All possible ones. There's infinite number. In fact, uncountably infinite, not just countable. F, what is F here in this picture with respect to convex hulls and sorting? Is the process of squaring up all the numbers to be sorted, to raise them to the parabola, to create an instance of convex hull from the instance of sorting. So comparing a permutation into a bunch of points in the plane to be convex hull, as opposed to sorting. F is this transformation. Okay, now that you get that, I would ask you where is A, where is B, and where is F on that last slide that we saw. Okay, so where is A, where is B, and where is F here on this slide? What's A? Let's start with that. First of all, what is A's type? Is it an animal, mineral, or vegetable? What is its type? Because if you don't know the type of something, trust me, you have no idea what that thing is. Okay. If you don't know that an animal is a mammal, for sure you don't know it's a zebra. How do you understand that reason? Yeah, because if you know it's a zebra, automatically it's a mammal. But if you don't even know it's a mammal, for sure you don't know it's a zebra. See what I'm saying? So what's the type of A here? Before asking what exactly is it. What's its type? Animal, mineral, vegetable, yeah. It's a problem. Okay, let's decompose that type into more primitive types. What does it mean to be a problem? It's a what? Is it a number? Is it a vector? Is it a tensor? Is it quadrilateral? Is this? It's a set. Good. It's a set. First of all, a set of what? A set of instances of the problem. Right? Let's be very specific. The problem of sorting is a set of all permutations. Each permutation needs to be converted to a sorted permutation. Right? What's the convex hull problem? What's its type? It's always a set of something, right? It's a set of what? Let's say in 2 dimensions. Point sets, finite point sets. Which ones? All of them. There's a lot of different point sets of all sorts of size, finite sizes, uncountable numbers. Okay, what's A here? What type is it? Set. Good. Set of what? Set of animals, minerals, vegetables, something else? Boolean formulas, yeah. And in particular, it's a set of all Boolean formulas which are satisfiable. So it's a set of all satisfiable Boolean formulas. And which variables? Any combinations of variables that you'd like. There's a whole lot of them, back with a number of satisfiable Boolean formulas. How do you get that? Okay. What's B in this slide? This is an exercise in abstraction. And taking something abstract and making more concrete, according to some example. Instantiating some abstraction as a concrete instantiation of that abstraction. So what's B in this slide? A set. It's always a good start to say it's a set. Right? I mean, it's not going to be a tensor or a vector or an integral, obviously. Right? So it's not going to be an animal, mineral, or vegetable either. It's a set. A set of what? What is it a set of? B here in this slide. It's not hard. It's not a trick question. I just want to make sure you can wrap your mind around the specific instantiation here of this general abstraction that we saw a minute ago with the A and the B and the arrow and the F. Because next I'm going to ask you what F is, but first I'm going to ask you what B is. What is B? A set of what? Boolean function, what kind? With 3 literals per every clause. How many get that? Yeah, exactly. All right, what's F now? If you got what A and B is, what is F here in this slide? Take the abstract and concretify it. I just made up a verb. I give to you. What's F here?
Thought process of
Yeah, it's the process of converting one of those to one of those A's to one of those B's. How many see the picture better now? Good, good. I'm glad we're hashing it out there. So, A is a set of all Boolean formulas that have clauses that look like this. B is a set of all Boolean formulas that have clauses that look like that. F is a conversion process of turning this into that in a way that preserves membership in the sets. So this is a formula that looks like this for the clauses, and this is not the only clause in the formula. There are many other clauses that have arbitrary structure. But clauses in the formula of the B type have structure that looks exactly like that. 3 and 3 and 3 and so on. So F is the process of converting formulas that are satisfiable of this form to formulas that are satisfiable of this form, if and only if. Okay, so we follow this recipe. And how fast is F? To convert sorting to convex whole took us linear time. You guys just square it. How fast is this F here? As a function of the size of the Boolean formula there. Each clause here will be converted to how many clauses there, roughly. If a clause here of arbitrary size has n variables, how many clauses of size 3 will be converted into according to this recipe? Roughly, big O of what? N, how many see that? Linear time. Yeah, they'll have each variable, the first 2 go here, the last 2 go there, but everything in between is 1 variable per clause. And the A's, B's, and the C's, the colored variables, are all new. But there's a linear number of those as a function of the size of this original clause. And every clause here in the rest of the formula will be converted to more of these clauses. So how big is this formula as a function of this formula? How big is the 3-sat version as compared to the original arbitrary formula when we started? Big O of, assuming the big formula is total size n of all the clauses and all the variables and the literals in them. N squared? It's certainly not bigger than n squared. It's big O of n squared. It's a true statement, but give me a better upper bound. How big is the new formula as a function of the old formula? Somebody said quadratic at most. I added the last 2 words. N, it's linear. Linear is also at most quadratic. Linear is also at most exponential. you're a billionaire, you're also a millionaire. But not the other way around. We're good on that? So we had a linear expansion from here to here with some constant of size 3 or whatever it is. But that's okay. If this was quadratic, would that still be okay as far as transformations go? I would say, yeah, if it was quadratic, it'd still be okay. Yeah, why? It just has to be polynomial. We just said that f has to be in P, polynomial time algorithm. We didn't say it has to be linear. If it's linear, it's all the better. Linear is polynomial. Polynomial is not necessarily linear. All right, so now we nail down the abstraction into some concrete scenario, and you'll see many more examples of this. Any questions so far? Bottom line is, if we can solve 3 SAT efficiently, this scheme shows you how to solve any SAT efficiently, not just 3 SAT. Convert it to 3 SAT, then hit the 3 SAT with whatever algorithm works for it. And that algorithm for 3 SAT will solve arbitrary SAT in the same time complexity. No more, because the transformation is linear. Does that make sense? How do you understand that schema? I don't see a sea of hands raising, but okay, we'll see many more examples, and maybe it'll click the next example and the next example after that. Question?
So I suppose, like how many vectors are we having after we convert it to restart?
Well, you'll have all the original literals there, plus a bunch of new ones that you're making up, A's and B's and C's in red, green, and blue. So you'll have auxiliary variables to make it stick together in a way that preserves satisfiability. So you'll have a few more variables, not more than a linear number. And even if we have a quadratic number, that'd still be okay. All right, let's go through some other stuff. So we already said that 1 SAT is pretty straightforward. Look for a variable, its negation. Sorting will do the job. 2 SAT, extra credit. And there's a hint. Okay? And let's go through a whole bunch of other problems. The following problems that we're going to go through are all NP-complete. And I'm going to show you a diverse set of problems that apparently have nothing to do with each other, but only apparently, because they're all tied together in this theory of NP-completeness. Together they stand, together they fall with respect to polynomial type solvability. Those are all NP-complete. And these problems are mostly, almost, I guess all of them are from Richard Karp's original 1972 paper, which I'll show you also separately. But let me show you the range of diversity of problems are NP-complete that we discovered very quickly, right after Cook's paper, a year later, to be all NP-complete by Richard Karp from Berkeley. The clique problem. So the clique problem, very simply, you have a graph, and I ask you, is there a subgraph, a complete subgraph of size k in this bigger graph? You might think, why is that so hard, right? Obviously, there's a subgraph here of size 4, that's a complete subgraph of size 4. That's a 4 clique right here. That's a 2 clique. 2 clique is a subgraph of size 2. There is a 6 clique right here. Means everything is connected to everything else in the clique. They're all interconnected. Yeah. Complete subgraph is when every node is connected to every other node, no exceptions. They are not paired, they are disconnected from each other. Only possible edges are there. That's a complete graph. Maximum number of edges. It's like, friends on Facebook, you have a group of friends, each one is a friend with every other friend, every other person in the group, no exceptions. That's a clique. And sometimes you hear, clique used colloquially, like, a clique of people in a party, they all know each other, and they're a clique. So a graph clique, there's a subgraph, all connected to everything else in that subgraph. So the whole graph is everything here that you see, but there is a subclique of size 4, there's a clique of size 6. And there's these two nodes, C and B. C and B are a clique of size 2. That's just one edge. That's okay, that's still a clique of size 2 nodes. So if I give you a graph and I give you an integer k, and I say, does this graph contain a clique of size k? You need to tell me if there's some subset of the nodes of size k nodes, such that every node in that subset is connected to every other node in that subset. What could be easier than that, right? I understand the problem. It seems innocent enough. Turns out that's also the hardest problem in NP, because it's NP-complete. It's as hard as SAT or anything else in NP. So, for example, here's a clique of size 5 in this graph. Right? There's a clique of size 3. Actually, there's a musical group called Click Girls. And, strange things you find on the internet when you look for NP-complete problems. So that's one of Karp's original problems I showed with NP-complete besides that, graph clicks. Now, why is that hard? Well, if I show you this graph here, when I didn't conveniently paint the nodes with color so your visual cortex can do a lot of processing and say, yeah, of course that's a clique of size 4, that's a clique of size 6, because they're all painted accordingly. If I show you this graph without any paints, and I say, is there a clique of size 5 or 6 here? And you say, yes, there is. I say, there is no clique of size 5 and clique of size 6. You don't know. You see why it's hard. You have to start thinking about subset, and for every subset, keep checking whether all the edges are there, and before you know it, you're doing brute force exponential time search, because there's so many subsets. How many subsets are there for n objects? Quickly, 5 seconds. 2 to the n, thank you. So yeah, you can solve this for brute force in 2 to the n time, but that's exponential. You can also solve SAT trivially by plugging in all the variables. There's 2 to the n combinations of those too. But in polynomial time, nobody knows how to do either problem, or any one of the problems I'm about to present to you next. So it's pretty hard. Practice, NP hard. That's a technical term. Okay, set cover, another problem. It's also NP complete. I have a universe of elements, and I give you a bunch of subsets. I'm showing it abstractly here. And I ask you, is there some combination of subsets, say no more than 4 subsets, that between all of them cover the entire set U? As NP complete. The set cover problem. Let me show you a more concrete example. Here are the elements, 12 of them, and here are the subsets. This subset, this subset, this subset, and that subset, maybe this subset of 2 down here. And I ask you, is there a way to cover all these points with three subsets? Well, if you pick the wrong 3, it's not enough. But if you pick this guy, and this guy, yes, you can. Are there 2 subsets that cover all 12 among these shown subsets here? No. But in general, that's very hard to determine. You have to look at every combination of subsets and an exponential number. Okay. So that's the set cover problem, and that's a cover set. Again, strange things come up in the internet, Google searches. All right. Another one, Hamiltonian cycle problem. Different problem, still NP complete. What's the problem? I give you a graph, and I ask you, is there a way to traverse all the nodes using some subset of the edges into one big continuous tour? So it's a cycle. It's called a Hamiltonian cycle. It's a relative traveling salesman. So is there a Hamiltonian cycle in this graph? Turns out there is. I highlighted the Hamiltonian cycle in this graph, and the edges, dotted edges, those are not used in the cycle. But all the nodes are used. So you need to traverse all the nodes and however many of the edges you want. Those are at your discretion, the edges. The nodes are mandatory. You have to visit them. If you have to visit all the nodes and all the edges, the problem is a lot easier, actually. It's called an Euler tool. When you heard of Euler tools, good. That's a lot easier, turns out. It's just a minor variation of this problem. All right, so another problem is NP-complete. Graph coloring. We already talked about graph coloring, but for the record, I give you a graph, and I give you, a K, a parameter, and I ask you, is it possible to paint this graph nodes with K colors such that no 2 adjacent nodes share the same color? That's it. That's the whole problem. So for this graph, 3 colors suffice. Green, red, and blue. And no 2 nodes are adjacent here. No 2 neighbors share the same node color. It's got a contrast. Okay. Could you paint this graph with only 2 colors? And you say yes. And you say no. And you say 3 colors are absolutely required. And you'd be correct. Somebody explain to me why.
Cycle.
Cycle, you have the 3 cycle. So the minute you have a triangle, like right there, that requires 3 colors. You cannot paint a triangle with only 2 colors. So A and B, but the last one can be A and can be B because it's neighbors to both the first 2. It's got to be C. So 3 colors are necessary and sufficient for this graph. But for an arbitrary graph, it's hard to tell. This graph, 3 colors also suffice, and I'm showing you how. This graph is called the Peterson graph. 3 colors suffice as well. But if I give you an arbitrary graph, it's very hard to tell. if 3 colors suffice, or 4 colors suffice, or any number of colors suffice, actually. What's this, how many colors would suffice no matter what if I give you a graph of n nodes? For sure, how many colors will suffice in a general case? N. And what would the graph look like for that to actually happen? Complete graph. Oh, everything is connected to everything else. Good. So no more than n is required on any graph. Well, what's the minimum required for a graph? Or a given graph, are 3 necessary and sufficient, or are 5 sufficient? Nobody knows an algorithm in general, runs in polynomial time, that can tell you that. It's NP-complete. It's as hard as anything in NP. It's as hard as graph coloring is as hard as satisfiability is, as hard as Hamiltonian cycles, and a whole bunch of other problems we haven't yet seen, which are about to come out. So I'll show you a lot of different problems, all of which are really hard. And not all of them will have to do with graphs, by the way. SAT has nothing to do with graphs, apparently. But we'll show you how to convert SAT into graph coloring pretty soon, using a beautiful transformation that won't be at all trivial. By the way, there's entire books on graph color. In fact, there's entire books on any one of these problems. Traveling salesman, satisfiability, there's yearly conferences on satisfiability. How many have ever seen one or heard of one? SAT solvers and SAT algorithms and heuristics and contests who can solve SAT faster for particular instances of SAT. Because so many other problems reduced to it. So when for example, in the compiler, when the compiler does register allocation, because it's constructing machine language code for large arithmetic expressions, that's what compilers do, among other things. It's using a SAT solver to try to figure out, and graphs colorability, to try to figure out which variables to assign to what registers in the CPU to optimize the arithmetic. How do you do that? Okay. Hardware people know that. Other people don't know that and don't know a lot of other things about hardware too, which is okay. It's a subspecialty of computer science. So, but my point is, SAT solvers and graph coloring solvers and heuristics are everywhere, including in compilers and many other places. Because anything in NP can be reduced to those NP-complete problems very straightforwardly. So they occur all over life. Scheduling your classes at the beginning of the semester, that's an NP-complete problem. How do you realize that? I said it a couple of lectures ago, I just want to see if you remember it, but that's one reason why it's really hard to get a good schedule going at the beginning of the semester. Now you know. It's NP-complete. You're solving a very hard problem. Of course, it doesn't mean, you spend forever, solving it. If at the end you come up with some solution that's good enough, and then you just give up and register. But before you do that, there's a lot of head scratching going on. How do you know what I'm talking about? Had that experience by scheduling? It's NP-complete. It's tough. All right, more classical NP-complete problems. But the partition problem. I give you a set of integers, and I ask you, is there a way to split those integers into two subsets, both having the same sum? Sounds easy. Right? Is there a way to do it, or isn't there a way to do it for a particular set of integers? So for example, I give you these integers, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Is there a way to split them up to give you the same sum? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. But if the set is large, I give you 100 integers or 10,000 integers of all different sizes, it's not at all obvious. Brute force, you can do it pretty straightforward. How would you do brute force if time didn't matter? Look at all possible, splits. How many possible splits are there, roughly? I have n objects. How many ways to split it into two subsets? Roughly 2 to the n. Why? The first subset could be any combination of numbers. The second could be whatever is left. It's determined by really how many subsets there are for n objects. How many subsets are there for n objects? 2 to the n. Why? Prove to me it's 2 to the n, do it in 10 seconds, go. Why?
For every element there is 2 choices are there, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, every element you can take into your subset or not take into your subset. And that uniquely determines that subset. So it's 2 choices per element is n element, so it's 2 to the n. It's 2 times 2 times 2, 1 per element. 2 choices per element, all multiplied out, that's 2 to the n. So yeah, you can do it brute force, but you know of no shortcut to determine if there's a split into 2 subsets, both having the same sum. Interestingly enough. Knapsack problem. That's an interesting problem. Let's say your house is burning down. Sometimes it happens. You have only 5 minutes to get into your house and take whatever you can carry. And you can't go back. By the time you go back, the house is gone. It's too dangerous to return to it. So you just grab whatever you can carry. What are you going to take? What are you going to try to save out of the fire? Same question happens when you're at an airport and it says, "Oh, your luggage is way overweight. But either you're going to have to reduce it below, 50 pounds, or you're going to have to pay $1,000 or some ridiculous amount. It's absolutely not going to be worth it to get the suitcase that's overweight." How many have been in that kind of situation before? Yeah. So what do you remove from the suitcase? What do you take out of the burning house? Yeah.
It's the one with the highest price and weight ratio.
Yeah. You take the stuff that's the most expensive, but doesn't weigh too much. So the question is, how do you? Let's say you have one knapsack, or you have one, ability to carry, say, 20 kilograms or 30 kilograms. That's it. You have to take the set of objects that weighs no more than you can carry, but that together are the most valuable among them. Whether it's jewelry or cash or family heirlooms, whatever the values. That's not the monetary value, the sentimental value too. That's just another form of value. So this is the general knapsack problem. Each object has a cost and a weight, and the total amount you can carry is some maximum limit. The question is, which subset of these objects can you fit into the knapsack that maximizes the aggregate value of all the objects? NP-complete. Nobody knows how to do this exactly. There's lots of heuristics for all these problems. Heuristics is inexact, approximate solutions that are good enough, like traveling salesman heuristics. But that's NP-complete. It's another problem Descartes showed is NP-complete in 1972 in his famous statement that we're about to see. And again, there's entire books written about this problem and every other problem on its list. Not just articles, not just wiki pages, multiple entire books, because they're so important, so useful. And at the airport, when you're asked to just leave some stuff behind, it's exactly this problem. You're going to try to leave out the cheapest stuff that won't get you, that will keep you under the weight limit of whatever the airport insists is the weight limit. Okay. There's funny cartoons about all this stuff, like the waiter says, "Well, what would you like to eat?" And he says, "We'd like to eat, whatever's on the menu that comes up to exactly a certain amount." So, and the menu has different prices for different things. So either the customer is asking the waiter to solve an NP-complete problem, trying to satisfy his order, which probably ain't going to happen, and you may not get good service if you impose on your waiter this way. I don't recommend it, but it is kind of funny about being kind of time-complexly, kind of asymptotic related humor. What question?
Knapsack can be solved with extra space.
With extra?
Space.
Well, if there was no limit on the aggregate weight, or you just take everything. So what do you mean by extra space?
No, I meant like program.
Oh, you can use all the space you want, all the polynomial space you want. It's not going to help. Because we still don't know how, it's not about space limits. It's about the fact that we don't know of any polynomial time algorithm for any of these problems. And if we did, if you could solve one of these problems using a polynomial time algorithm, all of NP instantly will be solvable within polynomial time using your algorithm as a subroutine and a transformation for NP-completeness to get the job done. See what I'm saying? So if you
As long as the dynamic programming of knapsack.
dynamic programming will not solve this in polynomial time. Otherwise, and if you can get dynamic programming to solve this polynomial time, you'll get $1 million from the Clay Institute, an instant PhD, probably a Turing Award while we're at it. And Google will pay you arbitrary amount of money to join. So nobody's done that yet. Now, I'm not saying that using dynamic programming, you couldn't come up with a good heuristic that will solve it pretty well in practice for most instances, and sometimes optimally by accident. That is a true statement. But not all the time exactly. That we don't know how to do. Question.
What's the difference between solving it heuristically versus like what I was saying?
An exact solution is the best there is. There's no better solution than that. Heuristic is try something that seems to work pretty good. It's good enough, we'll use it. it may or may not be optimal. If it's not optimal, it's probably close to optimal, and that's good enough, and we move on. So traveling salesman, let's say you want to visit 10 different places in some city that you just are visiting to. You take that 10 places and arrange them in some permutation, and if it's a random permutation, you'll be zigzagging across town from place to place, wasting a lot of time traveling back and forth across town. If you arrange it in a traveling salesman tour, it'll be the best way to do it. But traveling salesman is NP-complete. So what do? Say, I'm going to start with the Louvre, and then visit the Eiffel Tower next, because it's not that far away, and then go to the Arc de Triomphe, and then go to Notre Dame, and see what's left of it after it's burned down. And that's a heuristic. You don't know it's the best, but you're not zigzagging across town either, so you can live with that. That's a heuristic. It's an approximation. And we'll see very specific approximations coming up probably in the next lecture or two. And we'll prove things about the solution quality of these heuristics with respect to optimal. And amazingly, you can show traveling salesmen heuristically, provably not worse than twice the optimal, whatever the optimal is. I don't know how it is in the time even, but the heuristic will work very quickly and will prove that it works. Give you a solution no worse than twice the optimal, guaranteed. That's hard to do. It's easy to come up with a heuristic without any guarantees. For example, traveling sales, pick a random point. Go to the nearest neighbor that you haven't visited yet. Go to it next. Then go to the nearest neighbor of that you haven't visited yet, and keep going. And finally, when you get to the last one, go back to the beginning. That's a heuristic for TSP, traveling salesman. It's pretty good, it turns out. But it's not optimal. I'll show examples where it's far from optimal. And in practice, it works pretty nicely. And when you visit different destinations, you often use that heuristic. Like you go to the market, you need to buy 20 things, fill the cart with 20 different things on your shopping list. What do? You go to the first thing on the list, and then you look around and you try to see which thing on the list is closest to that thing that you just put in your cart. So you put the cart in the middle of your cart, now you need the eggs. So you see, is the eggs closer to me than the orange juice, and whichever is closer, I'm going to go to that next, and so on. So you're doing TSP right in the market when you're shopping. How do you understand that? You're doing it every day when you move around, whether it's in the market or traveling around town or deliver packages for FedEx or whatever, visiting friends or whatever. So, bin packing, another interesting problem. This happens all the time when you move. You have a bunch of bins. This is the one-dimensional version. And you think about these bins as boxes. So when you move, you have a bunch of boxes. Let's say they're all the same size, empty box cartons. You got to put all your stuff in cartons. Your belongings is stuff. Other people's belongings is junk. But I digress. You want to put all your stuff in boxes. How many boxes do you need? You want to minimize the number of boxes, obviously. You don't want to use too many if you don't have to. You don't want to leave a lot of airspace, but you want to kind of pack them tight so the movers won't have to, or you don't have to carry too many things back and forth from the car to the apartment, or whatever. Minimize the number of boxes and be complete. So when you have to stuff boxes with things and minimize the airspace and try to make it fit as tightly as possible, it gets harder and harder as you try more aggressively to minimize the number of boxes. And you probably know that from moving. Haven't you ran into that before? That means you have to shuffle things around and empty a box and redistribute it in other boxes and move things among boxes so it fits better, on and on and on. You're executing a heuristic for bin packing. It's an NP-complete problem, and all you can do is solve it approximately because the problem is intractable. This is the one-dimensional version. The boxes are usually 3D, and even a 2D version is hard, but the 1D is also hard. So you have these lengths, like planks, and how many different bins can you fit them in so that it minimizes the number of bins? Even the one-dimensional version is NP-complete, it turns out. And you're going to have two-dimensional versions, like this. You can pack rectangles into a larger rectangle. That's exactly the bin packing problem in 2D. What's the minimum number of rectangles necessary that are big? Or you can have 3D versions, and FedEx and UPS and even you, when you move, you have to solve this problem. How do you get all the boxes on a truck to minimize the space? And movers have to fit other people's stuff on the same big truck also, and packages, and everything like this. That's a 3D version. Tetris is a real-time version of this problem. You try to pack the pieces as closely as possible, and there's the extra time constraint that you don't have that more than just a few seconds per piece, and You know, and how do you avoid these air gaps? And that's the whole purpose of Tetris. How many played Tetris before? Well, so that's bin packing in real time and turned into a game. Okay. So now you see why Tetris is not so trivial, especially when there's a time limit. Even if there was no time limit, it'd be hard. It's NP-complete to try to fit a bunch of dominoes together and minimize the total airspace. Fit them as tightly as possible. And there's even physical versions made of plastic of Tetris and bin packing. You know. And there's entire books on it. There's even shelves that have to do with this kind of Tetris-like shelves that you can totally morph into different configurations. So if you have a long wine bottle, you can put it there. There's something long, you can put it sideways and so on. These shelves are all movable. It's a beautiful way to arrange shelves, especially if you're into NP-completeness and bin packing and heuristics. It's a great Christmas gift. Your loved ones have to appreciate complexity theory, fully appreciate it. Okay, Steiner trees. Given a bunch of nodes, given a graph and a designated set of nodes in the graph, how do you span those nodes with a tree such that all these nodes are connected, and you can use non-designated nodes as junctures or intermediate points. So for example, you know, it doesn't have to be a graph, it could be just points on the plane, but it specifically could be a graph. Points on the plane, if you want to connect them up, you connect them like this. 3 points in the plane, vertices are going to make a quadrilateral triangle, and obviously the new spanning tree, you pick 2 edges and it's all the same. But what if you could put another point in the middle that you didn't have before? This is a juncture or Steiner point. It's called a Steiner point after the guy who invented this problem in the 1800s. And if you put this point in the middle, you can connect all 3 to the middle and you save some total distance. The spanning distance now, instead of being 2, 1 and 1, it's now the square root of 3, roughly, which is 1.7. So you save about 15% by doing this schema rather than the original. So this, size 2, total cost 2. This, total cost, square root of 3. Now, it's easy for 3 points, but what if I give you 40 or 50 points? I ask you, where do you put the new juncture points in red so that the overall tree size is minimized? And here I'm using the rectilinear metric, the Manhattan metric, to connect things only horizontally and vertically. It's the same problem, though. Every metric doesn't matter, it's still NP-complete, regardless of the metric. So now it's not so obvious at all. Because if I didn't show you that tree, you know, and not even the points in red, it's not obvious at all where you put these extra junctures to minimize your overall cost. But this thing here is a good solution. Of course, the graph version is even more general. I give you a graph, and you have to connect up all the points in blue and use as many of the points in red that you want as junctions. What's a good solution for that? Not obvious at all. It's NP-complete, it's intractable, nobody knows of a good exact algorithm, although there's many heuristics for this problem. So here's a tree in red that connects all the blue points to each other through the spanning subtree in red, and uses a few red points as junctures, and some red points are not used at all. That's okay. You just have to connect the blue ones, not the red ones. The red ones are at your disposal to use as junctures to minimize your overall cost. And there's many books written about this problem. Dozens and dozens of books. I'm just showing you the top 5 or 6. So this particular problem I actually worked on myself. I wrote papers on it. I have heuristics for it. For the graph problem, actually, one of my heuristics held the world record for the best provably good heuristic that's bounded away from optimal by no more than roughly 1.5 or so for over a decade. So that's one of my achievements in algorithm complexity theory. So this problem is near and dear to my heart. But and some of these books are available on the reading list and on the website. You can read about your heart's content. Why is this problem important? Where in real life do you solve this problem? For example, yeah. Yeah, for wiring, like integrated circuits. You want to connect a bunch of transistors together on a chip, like you're routing a bunch of stuff, connecting them together electrically, and so you're solving exactly this problem. You want to minimize the total wire, because wire means extra distance, extra capacitance, extra resistance, extra time for the signal to traverse. Where in this building do you want to solve this problem? Never mind microscopic versions like circuits, but macroscopic versions. Where across campus do you solve this problem?
Corridors and roads.
Yeah, when you want to connect stuff in the building, whether it's rooms with corridors, or electrical lights with wires in the ceiling, or air conditioning conduits with ducts, or water pipes, and faucets in the different bathrooms and toilets and labs. You're going to connect all the water faucets to the main outside, to the main water line outside the building, and you want to minimize the total pipes in the walls that you're going to use, because pipes mean extra costs and materials, extra labor to install them and fabricate them and connect them. And so every building has this problem in it. It's a 3D version, and different subsystems, electrical, sewers, water, even hydraulic lines. In hospitals, you have oxygen lines and other things. There's interconnect everywhere. Okay, you want to connect a bunch of buildings on campus with fiber optic. That's the Steiner problem. So you see how ubiquitous it is, how common, how prevalent that problem is in every aspect of life. Most things need to be interconnected to other things at every level. Question?
How is this different from minimum Spanish?
How is this different from minimum spanning? Very good question. Somebody answer that one. Excellent question. Minimum spanning tree is a lot easier. There's Prim's algorithm and Kruskal's algorithm, and they run very quick polynomial time, less than quadratic, sometimes n log n. So why is this so hard?
Minimum spanning tree, you have to use all the nodes.
Yeah, minimum spanning has to connect all the nodes. Here, only the designated subset that is in blue. In the red, you can connect or not connect, that's up to you. You can use them or not use them, that's the optimization. So ironically, if you have to connect all of them together, no exceptions, it's a lot easier. If I give you some subset to connect, it makes it a lot harder. But if that subset is everything, there's only one of those subsets. If your subset is arbitrary, the subsets of the nodes in red that you may or may not use, there's many, many choices, exponential number of choices of those. It's hard to find the right one. That's why. Excellent question. What else? All right. Here's one we've been mentioning a lot. Yeah, question.
I have a question about the knapsack problem.
Okay, what's the question?
If the cost is always, or the price is always the same as the weight, is it still NP-complete? So you're just trying to fit as much weight as you
Excellent question. So he's saying if the price is almost the same as the weight, and that's a special case, that certainly could happen, it's a very specific case. If the price is the same as the weight, is it still NP-complete? What do you guys think? Or is there a simpler way of doing it? Let me give you a hint. Think about this problem. The partition problem. So the short answer is even if the weight and the price is the same, you're still asking the question, is there some subset that adds up to this number in the best possible way without leaving a gap between the sum and whatever the capacity is? That's really hard also. That's almost like the partition problem. The partition problem says, really you can make the weight half of the sum of everything, and you get this problem. Because the remaining ones will fit in the other half. How many see the connection between these two problems? So it's a very good question. So I just come up with a transformation.
Is that from the packing problem?
And of course, bin packing is related too. And with bin packing, there's many bins. There could be many bins. Here, there's really two bins. The bins are, the left side of the scale and the left side of the scale. And the bins, where are the bins in this problem? Two bins. One bin is the bag. The other bin is whatever's outside the bag. Okay? So this is almost like bin packing with two bins, but it has the extra twist that the weights and the prices could be different. They don't have to be the same. But even if they're the same, that's still hard. Very good question. Okay. Of course, if you make it even more specific, the weights and the costs are both the same and they're all equal to 1. Now it's easy. Is there a way to fill up this bag with everything being the same price, the same weight? Of one? Yeah, sure. Just pile it in, and when it's full, stop, and that's your answer. That's easy. So you see, if you reduce the problem by restricting some of the parameters, making them more specific, more special cased, eventually it trivializes. Like we've been saying all along. You can solve the problem in 3D, solve it in 2D. You can solve it in 2D, solve it in 1D. And then try to generalize your answer, and so on and so on. Okay, so we saw Steiner trees and traveling salesman problem. Again, we already mentioned it. You want to travel between a bunch of locations, whether it's on a map or circuits on a chip or whatever, and you want to take a tour. Again, many books written on it. I've written papers on this problem where I generalize it, where the points are no longer stationary. I call it moving target TSP, moving target traveling salesman problem. My version that I invented, the points can move as vectors. So each point has a vector associated with it, and they move in constant direction and constant velocity. It's even more complicated when they can move in non-constant direction and non-constant velocity. But even with constant direction and constant velocity, it's even harder than the static version, because the static version is a special case of the moving target version. How do you see that, where all the vectors are zero? Now they can move, it gives a whole new dimensionality of complexity to the problem. And I have heuristics for that, and you know, you can read some papers about it. But very, very classical problem. And here's a traveling salesman map of all the large cities and towns in the United States. So ideally, it's called a traveling presidential candidate map, where if you wanted to be seen in every single major town in the U.S., because you want exposure and you want to shake hands and kiss babies in every town. We're about to see that during the election season. This is a good solution for the traveling salesman, for the presidential candidate tour of the United States. And you sort of see the silhouette of the United States here. Notice that some legs go over water. It's not always on land necessarily. So, any questions about any of these problems? Not these cartoons, they're funny, but about any of these problems that we've seen so far. Okay. Graph colorability we already mentioned. Given a graph and an integer, is it k-colorable? Is there a way to paint it with k colors such that no two adjacent nodes share a color? And again, it's NP-complete. For certain graphs, it's easy. For other graphs, it's really hard. In general, it's very hard because you have to look at all ways of painting a graph. You have k colors and an exponential number of choices. Next time, we're going to start looking into specifically the paper by Richard Carr from Berkeley back in 1972 that listed all these problems and many other problems, show they're all NP-complete, they're all tied together. You could find a class NP-complete, show that not only SAT was NP-complete like it did, we showed that dozens of other problems are also NP-complete, and now we know that thousands of them are NP-complete. In fact, if you come up with some arbitrary problem you're trying to solve in the course of your work or research or studies, or if you work for a company, chances are better than even that the problem you're trying to solve, almost whatever it is probably NP-complete. If it's any kind of interesting or non-trivial, or it turns out NP-completeness is very, very ubiquitous. It appears everywhere, at every different aspect of human endeavor, engineering, science, logistics, commerce, everywhere. So it covers an incredible amount of ground, this theory, and the results revolving around this theory. It's hard to avoid it. In fact, we've been solving NP-complete problem all along, whether it's scheduling or traveling salesmen, we've been in places without even knowing it. And now that you know, you'll be able to do it better, hopefully. All right, any more questions before we stop? All right, we'll see you next time. But do read about this in the book. Don't just rely on me. It's subtle, and you need to kind of wrap your mind tightly around it.
发现就是